When my daughter Sophia told me not to embarrass her at her college graduation party, I thought it was just typical young adult behavior. But 3 weeks later, when I discovered what she'd been hiding in our family basement, I realized that staying quiet had nearly cost me everything, and that was only the beginning. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. The June afternoon in Millfield, Connecticut, was perfect for a graduation party. The kind of day where the sun sits just right, not too hot, and the breeze carries the smell of fresh-cut grass and barbecue smoke through our neighborhood of colonial houses. Sophia had worked hard for her finance degree at Yale, and Eleanor and I were proud enough to burst. We'd planned this backyard celebration for weeks, rented white tables with crisp linens, ordered a 3-tier cake from Pemberton's bakery on Main Street, even hired Bennett Catering because Sophia insisted it had to be absolutely perfect. I was adjusting the congratulations banner we'd hung between 2 massive maple trees when Sophia approached me, her cap and gown draped carefully over her arm. She looked stunning in that way that still caught me off guard sometimes. When did my little girl become this poised young woman? But her expression was tight, the way it gets when she's about to deliver news she knows I won't appreciate. "Mom," she said, glancing toward the wraparound porch where her college friends were starting to gather. They looked like they'd stepped out of a catalog, pressed khakis, designer dresses, the kind of casual wealth that never looks like it's trying too hard. "What is it, sweetheart?" She hesitated, twisting her class ring around her finger the way she'd done since middle school when she was nervous. Then she spoke quickly, like ripping off a bandage. "I need you to promise me something. Don't embarrass me in front of my friends today, okay? No stories about when I was little, no talk about your nursing days at the clinic, and please don't mention anything about growing up in Riverside. These people they're from a different world than ours." The words hit me like a physical blow. I'd spent 40 years as a registered nurse, 25 of them at the Riverside Community Health Clinic, serving families who couldn't afford private doctors. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was honest work, and I'd always been proud of making a difference in people's lives. More importantly, I'd raised Sophia to understand that dignity came from how you treated others, not from the size of your bank account. "Sophia, I'm proud of my career, and I'm proud of where we come from. Please, Mom, just this once, can you just be sophisticated?" As if 4 decades of caring for sick children and elderly patients had somehow made me unsophisticated. As if the values I'd tried to instill in her, compassion, integrity, hard work, were embarrassing in polite company. I looked at Eleanor, who was arranging white roses in crystal vases we'd borrowed from our neighbor Mrs. Chen. My wife gave me a subtle shake of her head, the kind that meant pick your battles. We'd been married 43 years, and I knew that look well. So I swallowed the hurt that was rising in my throat and nodded. "All right, Sophia, I'll keep a low profile. Thank you." She seemed genuinely relieved, her shoulders relaxing for the first time all morning. These friends, they're really important for my future. Some of their parents are partners at the investment firms I'm applying to. This could open doors for me. I understood then. This wasn't really about me being embarrassing. This was about Sophia climbing a social ladder I'd never seen before, reaching for something that apparently required her to distance herself from her middle-class roots in Riverside. The party got underway around 2 o'clock. I played the role of the quiet mother, making small talk about the weather and asking safe questions about their post-graduation plans. Sophia's friends were polite but distant, the kind of young people who spoke in corporate buzzwords and name-dropped companies like Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley, as if they were discussing family members. One young man, Bradford Whitmore III, he made sure to include the Roman numerals, seemed particularly important to Sophia. He had that effortless confidence that comes from never having worried about money, wearing a navy blazer that probably cost more than my monthly salary. When he shook my hand, his grip was soft, manicured, and he barely made eye contact. "So you're Sophia's mother," he said with a smile that didn't reach his pale blue eyes. "She's told us so much about you." I doubted that, given how carefully Sophia had coached me to stay quiet about anything that might reveal our actual background. But I smiled back and said something about being proud of her academic achievements. As the afternoon progressed, I found myself relegated to the edges of conversations, watching my daughter laugh at jokes I couldn't hear, discussing future plans that apparently didn't include much room for her small-town upbringing. The other parents who attended, Bradford's mother Muffy, Caitlin's father, who was some kind of hedge fund manager, Alexandria's mother, who kept mentioning their house in the Hamptons, all seemed to speak the same language of prep schools and trust funds and summer homes. Eleanor must have sensed my growing discomfort, because she appeared beside me with a glass of the expensive white wine Sophia had insisted we serve. "You're doing fine, Margaret," she whispered. "This is her day." I nodded, but something felt fundamentally wrong. It wasn't just the way Sophia's friends treated me like the help. It was the way Sophia herself seemed different around them, more polished certainly, but also more guarded, like she was performing a version of herself I didn't recognize. The girl I'd raised would have introduced me as the woman who'd worked double shifts to pay for her college prep courses. This version of Sophia seemed to pretend I didn't exist at all. Around 4 o'clock, as the catering staff was setting up the dessert station, I was collecting empty glasses when I overheard Bradford talking to another young man near the garden shed. "Sophia's really got her priorities straight," Bradford was saying, his voice carrying that particular brand of arrogance that comes with inherited wealth. "She understands what it takes to succeed in our world. Some people get held back by family baggage, but she's smart enough to know when to make strategic decisions about associations. Strategic decisions about associations." The clinical language made my blood run cold. I looked towards Sophia, who was posing for photos with a group of girls by the fountain Eleanor and I had saved up to install last summer. She caught my eye and waved, all smiles, like nothing had changed. But something fundamental had changed. I just didn't know what yet. The other young man, I think his name was Prescott, nodded knowingly. "My father always says that successful people are ruthless about cutting dead weight. Family loyalty is admirable, but not when it limits your potential. Dead weight. Family loyalty that limits potential." These weren't just callous words from privileged kids, they were apparently concepts Sophia had embraced. I moved closer, pretending to arrange the citronella candles Eleanor had placed around the patio. "The best part," Bradford continued, "is that she's handling the transition so smoothly. Moving to Manhattan, landing the internship at Whitmore and Associates, my father's firm, of course, and she's already talking about finding a place in the Upper East Side. Smart girl knows where she belongs. Manhattan, Upper East Side." These were the first I'd heard of any such plans. As far as I knew, Sophia was spending the summer at home before starting her job search in the fall. That evening, after the last guest had departed and the rental company had collected their tables and chairs, I sat on our back deck with Eleanor. The yard looked strangely empty, scattered with a few forgotten cocktail napkins that danced in the evening breeze. The solar lights we'd installed along the garden path twinkled like distant stars. "Did you hear what that Bradford boy said?" I asked, sipping my tea from the ceramic mug Sophia had made me in high school pottery class. Eleanor set down her own cup, the one with the chip on the handle that she refused to throw away because Sophia had given it to her for Mother's Day years ago, about cutting dead weight. "Margaret, privileged kids say awful things. Don't read too much into it." But I couldn't shake it. Sophia had spent the entire party treating me like a liability, and her friends had spoken about family like it was something to strategically discard. I'd raised Sophia to value loyalty, to understand that success meant nothing if you forgot the people who'd helped you get there. The next morning, Sophia was in her childhood bedroom packing when I brought her coffee, the expensive kind she'd developed a taste for at Yale. Her room still had the same pale yellow walls we'd painted when she was 12, the same bookshelf filled with Nancy Drew mysteries, and later AP textbooks. But now it felt like a museum exhibit of someone else's life. "I'm really excited about the summer, Mom," she said, folding a silk blouse I didn't recognize into her suitcase. The internship at Whitmore and Associates could lead to a full-time offer. Bradford's father has already indicated I'm exactly the kind of talent they're looking for. This was the first I'd heard of any internship. "That's wonderful, honey. When did this opportunity come up?" A brief hesitation. "Oh, Bradford mentioned it a few weeks ago. I didn't want to say anything until it was definite." She smiled brightly. "The best part is, they're providing a furnished apartment in Manhattan. Company housing for interns. Company housing. In Manhattan. For a summer internship." Either Whitmore and Associates was extraordinarily generous, or there was more to this arrangement than Sophia was telling me. "That's quite generous of them," I said carefully. "Bradford says his father believes in investing in the right people." She paused in her packing. "Mom, about yesterday, I hope you understand. It's not that I'm ashamed of our family or anything. It's just that the finance world has certain expectations. Image matters." I wanted to ask her what kind of expectations required her to hide her mother's nursing career. I wanted to tell her that real success shouldn't require her to pretend she came from somewhere else. But looking at her face, so animated about her future prospects, I kept those thoughts to myself. "I understand, sweetheart. You do what you think is best." She hugged me then, and for a moment she felt like my little girl again, the one who used to help me tend our vegetable garden, who'd insisted on accompanying me to the clinic's Christmas party every year because she wanted to meet the families I talked about. "I love you, Mum. This is just temporary, you know. Once I get established in the industry, things will be different." I wanted to believe her, but as I watched her load her car with expensive luggage I didn't remember buying, something in my chest felt heavy. Sophia was chasing a dream that seemed to require her to erase us, and I didn't know how to feel about that. 3 weeks passed with minimal contact. Sophia called twice, both times rushed conversations, where she talked about networking events and client dinners. She sounded happy, but also distant, like she was speaking to me from across a much wider gap than the 100 miles between Millfield and Manhattan. It was on a humid Thursday morning in early July that everything changed. I was in the basement looking for Eleanor's sewing machine. She wanted to hem the new curtains for the guest room when I noticed something that made me stop cold. Behind the old washing machine, tucked into the corner where we stored holiday decorations, was a stack of boxes I did not recognize.
They were bankers' boxes, the kind you'd use for storing important documents, each one labeled in Sophia's neat handwriting. Financial record 2019 to 2024. 2019 to 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, we were baked the poker when she was still.
I stared at them for a long moment, my heart starting to race. Why would Sophia have boxes of our family's financial and medical records, and why were they hidden in the basement? I called upstairs to Eleanor, who was in the kitchen starting lunch preparations. "Elle, can you come down here for a minute?" She appeared at the top of the basement stairs, drying her hands on a dish towel. "What is it? Did you know Sophia had these boxes down here?" Eleanor descended the stairs carefully. They were steep and narrow, installed when the house was built in 1952. When she saw the boxes, her face went pale. "Margaret, those have our names on them." She was right. Looking closer, I could see labels that read Margaret Chen Morrison Medical History, Eleanor Morrison Employment Records, Millfield Property Assessment. "Should we look?" Eleanor asked, but her voice suggested she already knew the answer. With trembling hands, I lifted the lid of the box labeled Financial Records. Inside, organized in manila folders with color-coded tabs, were photocopies of documents I'd never given Sophia permission to access: our bank statements, tax returns, mortgage papers, even the paperwork from Eleanor's 401k account. The bank statements went back 3 years and were annotated in Sophia's handwriting. She'd highlighted certain transactions: my visits to Dr. Peterson for my arthritis, Eleanor's prescription medications, the payment we'd made to have the roof repaired last fall. In the margins, she'd written notes: increased medical expenses, home maintenance issues, fixed income limitations. "Eleanor, look at this," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. She leaned over my shoulder as I opened a folder labeled Competency Assessment. Inside were printed copies of emails between Sophia and someone named Dr. Harrison Pembroke at Yale Medical School. The subject lines made my stomach clench: geriatric cognitive decline indicators, early-stage dementia documentation, legal standards for competency evaluation. But it was the contents of the emails that made me have to sit down on an old paint bucket Eleanor used as a makeshift stool. "Dr. Pembroke," one email began, "thank you for the materials on age-related cognitive decline. As we discussed, I'm concerned about my mother's increasing forgetfulness and poor financial decisions. My mother, Margaret, age 70, has been showing signs that worry me: forgetting to lock doors, repeating stories, difficulty managing complex tasks. Her wife, Eleanor, 68, seems to be enabling this decline rather than addressing it." I had to stop reading. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the paper. "Forgetting to lock doors," Eleanor said, reading over my shoulder. "You forgot to lock the front door one time, and that was because Mrs. Chen was having that medical emergency, and you rushed over to help." I forced myself to continue reading. "I'm particularly concerned about their financial vulnerability. They live on fixed incomes and have made several questionable spending decisions recently. Expensive home repairs, unnecessary medical procedures, impulsive purchases. I worry they're being taken advantage of by contractors and medical providers." Expensive home repairs. The roof that had been leaking for months before we finally had it fixed. unnecessary medical procedures, my arthritis treatment and Eleanor's cardiac monitoring that our doctors had recommended. I would appreciate any guidance on documentation that might be useful if I need to pursue legal guardianship to protect their assets and ensure proper care. Legal guardianship. The words felt like a slap. I opened the next folder with hands that felt disconnected from my body. Inside were photographs, dozens of them, taken without our knowledge. Pictures of me working in the garden, apparently evidence of me having difficulty with physical tasks. Photos of Eleanor at the grocery store, with handwritten notes about confusion and indecisiveness. Images of our house with circles drawn around the peeling paint on the shutters and the slightly sagging gutter, annotated as failure to maintain property. But the most damning folder was labeled Behavioral Documentation. Inside was a leather journal filled with Sophia's handwriting, documenting our daily activities like we were subjects in a clinical study. June 3rd. Mom forgot about bridge club today. Eleanor had to remind her twice. Possible early memory issues. June 8th. Found them watching the same movie they saw last week. When I mentioned it, Mom seemed confused. Eleanor covered for her. June 15th. Mom couldn't remember the name of the new medication Dr. Peterson prescribed. Had to ask Eleanor 3 times. Clear cognitive decline. I stared at the entries, my heart pounding. The bridge club forgotten was actually cancelled because Mrs. Rodriguez had the flu. Sophia knew this because I'd told her. The movie we'd watched twice was Eleanor's favorite, and we'd watched it intentionally because she'd had a difficult week. The medication name I'd asked Eleanor about was because Dr. Peterson had prescribed 2 new medications, and I wanted to make sure I was taking the right one at the right time. Every symptom Sophia had documented had an innocent explanation, but reading her clinical descriptions, we sounded like 2 elderly women in serious cognitive decline. My God, Margaret, Eleanor whispered. She's been building a case against us. I turned the page and found the entry that made everything clear. June 20th. Spoke with Bradford about estate planning strategies. His family's attorney specializes in elder law and guardianship cases. B says the key is establishing a pattern of poor judgment and increasing dependency. The graduation party will be perfect for documenting social inappropriate behavior. June 22nd. Planted the idea with Mom about not embarrassing me at the party. If she stays quiet and withdrawn, I can document social isolation and depression. If she tries to engage, I can document inappropriate behavior and lack of social awareness. Either way, it supports the narrative. The graduation party, her request for me to stay quiet. The way she'd positioned me at the edges of conversations, the careful choreography that had made me feel like an outsider in my own backyard. It had all been theater, designed to gather evidence against me, but there was more. June 25th. Party went perfectly. Several witnesses can now testify to Mom's antisocial behavior and confusion about social norms. Bradford's mother commented on how lost Mom seemed among educated people. His father noted that Mom appeared overwhelmed by simple conversations about current events. Antisocial behavior, confusion about social norms. I'd been quiet because my own daughter had asked me to be, and now that silence was being used as evidence of mental decline, I flipped through more pages, each one revealing new layers of betrayal. Sophia had documented every moment of forgetfulness, every instance of physical difficulty, every financial decision we'd made. She'd consulted with medical professionals, legal experts, and financial advisors, all in service of a plan that was becoming horrifyingly clear. July 1st, meeting with Whitmore family attorney next week. Bradford says his father handles these situations discreetly for other families. The key is timing. Need to establish conservatorship before Mom and Elle realize what's happening. July 5th. Reviewed CT property laws regarding elder guardianship. With proper documentation, process can be expedited. These father knows judges who are sympathetic to children, trying to protect aging parents from financial exploitation. Financial exploitation. She was planning to claim that we were being financially exploited in order to justify taking control of our finances herself. Eleanor, I said, my voice hoarse. She's going to try to have us declared incompetent. Eleanor sank onto the old couch we'd relegated to the basement years ago. Our own daughter. I kept reading, and each page revealed new details of the conspiracy. Sophia had researched our assets, the house, Eleanor's pension, my savings account, even the small inheritance I'd received from my mother. She calculated the value of our estate down to the penny and developed a timeline for gaining legal control. The internship in Manhattan wasn't an internship at all. It was Sophia moving closer to the Whitmore family's legal team, establishing residence in New York, where, according to her notes, elder law cases move faster through the courts. In the final folder, I found the document that made everything crystal clear. A draft petition for emergency guardianship, already filled out with our names, addresses, and a detailed list of our alleged incompetencies. It was dated for next month, August 15th, exactly 1 year before Eleanor's 69th birthday, when she'd be eligible for certain Social Security benefits that would increase our assets. The timing wasn't coincidental. Sophia had planned this down to the month, designed to take control of our finances, just as they were about to improve. I closed the folder and looked at Eleanor, who was sitting in stunned silence. 43 years of marriage, and I'd never seen her look so devastated. What do we do? She asked. Before I could answer, my phone rang. The caller ID showed Sophia's number. For a moment, I considered not answering, but I needed to know how far this had progressed. Whether she was calling to put the next phase of her plan into motion. Hi, sweetheart, I said, surprised by how normal my voice sounded. Hi, Mum. How are you and Elle doing? Her voice was bright, cheerful, the same loving tone she'd used her entire life. We're fine. Just thinking about you. Oh, that's sweet. Hey, I've been talking to some people here about estate planning. You know, making sure everything's organized for you two as you get older. Have you ever thought about setting up a trust, or maybe giving me power of attorney, just for peace of mind? There it was, the opening move, delivered with the same casual tone she used to ask about dinner plans. That's thoughtful of you, Sophia, but I think we're managing our affairs just fine. A pause. Mom, I know you are. I just want to help. These financial advisors I've been meeting with say it's smart to get these things in order early. Maybe we could talk about it when I come home. I come home next month. I could bring some forms, just to have them ready. Forms, no doubt provided by Bradford's father's law firm. Forms, no doubt provided by Bradford's father's law firm. We'll see, I said, making my voice sound tired, confused. Exactly the way she'd been documenting me. Are you okay, Mom? You sound low. I don't know. Maybe a little overwhelmed. She was fishing. Oh, I don't know, maybe a little overwhelmed. She was fishing, looking for more evidence of cognitive decline to add to the file. She's tired, honey. You know how it is at my age. At my age, of course. I'll get some rest. Okay. Okay. After I will have you. After I not. I find the growing dimness of our patient. So I will but by evidence for my daughter to flower and the fulfillment by evidence of worth. Outside the neighborhood Outside the neighborhood where we'd raised Sophia, where we'd planned to live out our retirement, continued its peaceful rhythm. But everything had changed. Sophia had spent months building a case against us, documenting our every move, manipulating our trust. The graduation party hadn't been about her embarrassment. It had been about gathering witnesses to testify to our incompetence. And the plan was accelerating. She was coming home next month with legal forms, ready to complete whatever process she and the Whitmore family had set in motion. I thought about the little girl who used to help me plant tomatoes in our backyard garden. The teenager who'd volunteered at the clinic with me during summer breaks, who'd said she wanted to help people the way I did. The young woman who'd hugged me 3 weeks ago and promised that things would be different once she got established. Now I understood what she'd meant. Once she got established with our money, our house, our entire life savings, Eleanor appeared beside me, her hand finding mine in the dim light. "Margaret," she said quietly, "what are we going to do?" I looked at my wife of 4 decades, the woman who'd stood by me through career changes and family crises, and Sophia's entire childhood. I thought about how this revelation was devastating both of us, how it was destroying the family we'd built with such care. But I also thought about Sophia in Manhattan, probably on the phone with Bradford right now, planning the next phase of their scheme. I thought about the trust fund she'd researched in her notes, about the attorney who knew sympathetic judges, about the emergency guardianship petition that was already drafted and waiting. "Eleanor," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "we need to make some calls, and then we need to visit a lawyer of our own, because Sophia had made one crucial mistake in all her careful planning. She'd underestimated the woman who'd spent 40 years advocating for patients, who'd learned to fight insurance companies and navigate medical bureaucracy and never back down when someone vulnerable needed protecting. The only difference was I'd never imagined I'd need to protect myself from my own daughter. But as I gathered up the photographs, the financial records, and the damning journal entries, I realized something else. The girl who'd written these plans wasn't the daughter I'd raised. That Sophia would never have betrayed family for money, would never have chosen social climbing over loyalty. This Sophia was someone else entirely. And I was about to find out just how far she was willing to go to steal the life Eleanor and I had spent decades building. The basement felt colder now, shadows lengthening as the sun set above us. But for the first time since opening those boxes, I felt something other than devastation. I felt angry, and in my experience, righteous anger could be a powerful thing when channeled properly. Sophia thought she was dealing with 2 confused elderly women who'd be easy to manipulate through the legal system. She was about to discover that she'd declared war on someone who'd spent a lifetime fighting for what was right. And I'd never lost a fight that mattered. The next morning, Eleanor and I sat across from attorney Patricia Blackwood in her downtown Hartford office. I'd brought everything: the boxes, the photographs, the journal entries, the draft guardianship petition. Patricia's face grew increasingly grim as she reviewed each document. "Mrs. Morrison," she said finally, "this is one of the most comprehensive elder abuse schemes I've encountered. Your daughter has been building this case for months." I felt Eleanor's hand squeeze mine. "What can we do?" Patricia leaned back in her leather chair. "The good news is that she hasn't filed anything yet. The bad news is that when she does, this documentation could be compelling to a judge who doesn't know the full story." She explained our options. We could wait and defend ourselves when Sophia filed, or we could take preemptive action. I recommend we file a restraining order and alert Adult Protective Services immediately. We need to create our own paper trail. That afternoon, we drove to the Millfield Police Department. Detective Rosa Martinez listened to our story with the professional patience of someone who'd seen family betrayal before. She photographed every document, took detailed statements, and opened an investigation into financial elder abuse. The key evidence, Detective Martinez explained, is the premeditation. This wasn't a desperate daughter trying to help confused parents. This was calculated fraud. 3 days later, Sophia called again. This time, I was ready. Mom, I've been thinking about our conversation. I really think we should set up that meeting about your finances. I could drive up this weekend with those forms. Actually, Sophia, I said, my voice steady, Eleanor and I have been doing some organizing of our own. We found some interesting documents in the basement. Silence. Then carefully, what kind of documents? Your research, your photographs, your journal entries about our supposed cognitive decline. The silence stretched longer this time. When Sophia finally spoke, her voice was different, colder, more calculating. Mom, I think you're confused. Those must be old-school papers or something, including the draft guardianship petition with our names on it. Another pause. I don't know what you think you found, but I know exactly what I found. Correspondence with Dr. Pembroke about geriatric decline, financial analysis of our assets, a timeline for legal action. Should I continue? Mom, you're not thinking clearly. This is exactly the kind of paranoid behavior that worries me. Even now, she was trying to gaslight me, to use my confrontation as evidence of the mental instability she'd been fabricating. The police have everything, Sophia. Detective Martinez was very interested in your documentation methods. The police, for the first time, her voice cracked. Mom, what have you done? What I've done is protect Eleanor and myself from financial fraud. What you've done is commit elder abuse. The mask finally dropped completely. You have no idea what you're talking about. I was trying to help you before you lost everything to some scammer or made stupid financial decisions, by stealing our assets yourself, by making sure you were properly cared for. Do you think you can handle your finances forever? Do you think Eleanor's memory is getting better? I was planning for your future. You were planning for your future, Sophia, using our money. The conversation ended with Sophia hanging up on me. 2 hours later, Bradford called. Mrs. Morrison, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Sophia is very upset, and I'm sure we can work this out as a family. There's no misunderstanding, Bradford, and we're not family. Perhaps we could meet and discuss this reasonably. My father's firm handles these situations with discretion. Your father's firm can discuss it with our attorney and the police. That weekend, Sophia arrived unannounced. I watched through the kitchen window as she got out of her car, her face set in grim determination. She'd brought a briefcase, probably those forms she'd mentioned. When she knocked, I opened the door but left the chain latch engaged. Mom, we need to talk. We have nothing to discuss, Sophia. You're making a huge mistake. I was trying to protect you. By documenting false symptoms of dementia, by hiring investigators to photograph us without our knowledge, by consulting attorneys about having us declared incompetent. Her composure finally cracked. Fine. Yes, I was planning ahead. Do you want to know why? Because I've seen what happens to elderly people who don't plan. They lose everything to nursing homes and medical bills and predatory schemes. So you decided to run a predatory scheme yourself. I was going to take care of you. The money would have been used for your care, after you paid yourself a management fee, I'm sure. Eleanor appeared beside me. Sophia, how could you do this to us? We loved you. We sacrificed for you. And I was going to sacrifice for you. I was going to give up my social life, my connections, to manage your declining years. The entitlement in her voice was staggering. She genuinely believed she was the victim here. Your social life with people who think we're dead weight, I asked. They understand what it takes to succeed. They understand that sometimes you have to make hard choices, like betraying your parents for money, like protecting family assets from being wasted on medical care you're too proud to admit you need. I stared at my daughter, this stranger who'd replaced the child I'd raised. Get off our property, Sophia. Don't come back. You're going to regret this, Mom. When you're sitting in some state-run facility because you couldn't afford proper care, remember that I tried to prevent it. I closed the door and turned the deadbolt. 3 months later, the legal proceedings concluded. Sophia pled guilty to attempted financial elder abuse in exchange for probation and restitution for the money she'd spent on private investigators and legal consultations. The Whitmore family quietly distanced themselves from the scandal. Bradford's father's firm faced an ethics investigation after it was revealed they'd provided legal advice for an elder law scheme without proper safeguards. Several other families came forward with similar stories. Dr. Pembroke at Yale received a formal reprimand for providing medical consultation without examining the supposed patients. Eleanor and I updated our wills, established a proper trust with an independent attorney, and installed a security system. We also started attending a support group for elder abuse survivors. The most difficult part wasn't the legal battles or the financial recovery. It was grieving the daughter we thought we had, while accepting the reality of who Sophia actually was. 6 months after the confrontation, I received a letter from Sophia, no return address, postmarked from California. Mom, it read, I want you to know that I still believe I was trying to help you. Maybe my methods were wrong, but my intentions were good. I hope someday you'll understand that I was trying to protect you from a system that doesn't care about elderly people. I'm starting over in San Francisco. Maybe distance will help us both gain perspective. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of the betrayal, just the same self-justification that had driven her to nearly destroy us. I showed the letter to Eleanor, then filed it away with all the other evidence. Someday, maybe, I'd be able to remember the little girl who used to help me in the garden. But that little girl was gone, replaced by someone who saw family as a resource to be managed rather than people to be loved. We kept the house, kept our independence, and kept our dignity. Most importantly, we kept each other. The porch swing still creaks on summer evenings. The garden still needs tending. The neighborhood still feels like home. But now we know that love isn't always returned in the way you give it. Sometimes the people you raise become strangers. Sometimes protection requires defending yourself from your own family. The saddest part isn't that Sophia tried to steal our money. It's that she was willing to steal our autonomy, our dignity, and our peace of mind for the promise of social acceptance from people who valued wealth over character. But we survived. We're stronger. And we've learned that family isn't just about blood. It's about loyalty, respect, and love that doesn't come with conditions. Thank you for joining me on this difficult journey. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Sometimes the most important stories are the hardest ones to tell.